that the best performance of this side in your tenure, do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to remember two dominant halves like that where you don't fall off. Normally you can have one outstanding half and you fall away, or you don't start well and then you have a great second half. But I think in terms of 90 minutes, yeah, that was, probably the best one so far for sure.
I mean, in terms of games to do it in, January 26th, Big Blue against Sydney FC is a pretty good one. Just why do you think today of all days you found the right mix and right ingredients?
Yeah, and that's the part that makes it more special. Yeah, it's a big game, and it was a great atmosphere out there. Yeah, both fans. I mean, Sydney came with numbers, which was great to see, but our fans today were outstanding. They were amazing, and the football followed suit. So for me, it was a beautiful day. Great football, great performance, and to be clinical like we were, that's the most pleasing part. And then add to that, you don't lose focus and concentration. You don't concede. We came close a couple of times. That's for sure, but in the end we didn't, and that's clean sheet, 3 points in a game like that. It's a beautiful afternoon.
Obviously a pretty emotional loss for Adelaide with the disallowed goal, 3 disallowed goals within the first 48 minutes. How impressive was it, or your reaction to that, but also how impressive was it that your players didn't lose their heads and went and just scored 4 more?
That's the most pleasing part, because in games like that, it can easily go against you and bite you in the backside. And we've been on the back of that a few times since I've been at this club. That's something that I didn't want to happen, but you always have that in the back of your mind because you think you're so dominant, you're creating so many chances, some are disallowed, and the last thing you want is to cop one at the other end. And that's a credit to the players for keeping their heads and staying mentally switched on. And we spoke before the game about being relentless today from start to finish and making it really difficult for them. And that's the most pleasing part, that we did that for 90 minutes.
3 assists for one today, and I think you had the secondary assist for the other goal, and that I know you spoke about him, but how impressive was that? Is that the best he's been for you?
He's not a bad player, isn't he? He's not a bad player. He's doing very well. We're very happy to have him. You can see he's enjoying his football. The players are working really well with him. But in the end, the most important thing for him is you see how hard he works, and that's... You can be a fantastic footballer, and irrespective of what your name is, it's about what you bring as a personality and doing your job on the pitch and working just as hard as anybody else, or even harder. And he does that. So, I'm very happy for him to get those stats, because in the end they're great stats for him. But in the end, it's all about the team, and he's a part of the team, a big part of the team, and he helps us click.
I know we're sort of halfway through the season at the moment, but do you sometimes think back to when you did get him right now and think to yourself, geez, how did we get him? Pretty amazing how he's landed in your lap almost.
No, that's football. In the end, when you're recruiting, different names come on your desk every day, every week, and the beauty that he was already in Australia, so he knew the league. We obviously knew what he could do, and we knew that he fits into our jigsaw puzzle pretty well, and that's the most important part. That you sign a player not for his name, but what he can add to your team on the park, and forget about what he adds off the park and in the change room. That's a bonus, but on the park, he's very valuable to the way we want to play, and that's why for me it was important to have him here.
As you mentioned, it's probably the best performance of the team in your team. Is that probably Santos' best individual game since you had the reins?
Not if he didn't miss those 2 top chances. So, yeah, I gave him a clip over the ear at the end of the match there because I was disappointed. He could have had his first hat-trick, and in the end, you got to be clinical. They're top chances. We've got to score those. It's really important. Yes, he scored 2 goals, but sometimes you get opportunities in matches where you can score more, and it's not very often that you get that opportunity. So when it's there, you need to take it. And unfortunately, he didn't, but he still contributed, which is important.
You've spoken a couple of times after some wins about you're building, but you're not yet where you want to be. You have to ask, after a performance like this, how close are you to that point now?
We'll be closer when we can back that up and keep going, and that can't be a one-off. That's got to be consistent. Once you get to that level and being consistent, that's when you're where you should be. Until that happens, we're still a work in progress, and we're still looking forward to improve every week. But that's the level, and there has to be a consistent level, not a one-off.
There's obviously a lot of talk about one, but Louis and Dennis in there as well, pretty much neutralising Sydney's midfield completely. Well, you've got Geordie coming back in from a lot of Ollie Rouge duties, a good player, but do you feel as though that midfield, that triumvirate you got in there, they're really clicking into place now?
Yeah, they're great players. The beauty is at the moment, touch wood, we've got a lot of healthy bodies, and it wasn't like that for the first 5-6 weeks of the season. We had to get players back on the park, and the most important thing is that we keep everyone healthy as much as we can, and that's credit to our medical staff and our physical staff that they're very thorough in the way we work here. For example, we could have had Roddy play tonight, and we chose not to, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is a player's health and well-being. We'll never put that before anything. And now when everyone's fit and available, it's perfect for me because it's competition for places. It drives every day the quality of training. It gives me headaches, absolutely. It's not easy, but it's a good headache to have. And we've got to make sure we keep everybody fit and healthy and making sure they keep doing their job.
You mentioned competition, but you started, you benched both Nishan Blue and Jack Duncan coming back. You kept the faith in Jack, and you just talk us through those couple.
Yeah, Jack Duncan, he had a history last year of concussion, and we had to be careful with him. I didn't feel, during the week that he was still at 100% of where he should be. And then knowing that you got Jack there that's doing a fantastic job regardless, I was very comfortable with that decision. And Jack had another great game, which was beautiful to see. Nish come on and did well. Grimmer earned his opportunity. And that's the value of having a healthy squad. Give you those opportunities, give you those headaches, and give you those options.
2 months ago, round 5, we're sitting in the press conference, and it was a very different atmosphere. It was quite sombre. It was 3-0 loss to Sydney FC, and before that, there were a couple of losses also. This is only your second season as an A-League head coach, and this is the second time that you've been able to really lift your team out of, a bit of a bother at times. You are a success story in terms of coach in the A-League. There are lots of coaches that find themselves in your situation, and I'm sure you don't want to share all your secrets, but there's obviously something that you're doing right. So, if there was something that you had to say to them, because I'm sure that you look out for each other to an extent, is there one thing that you do, whether it's with the club, whether it's with the players, whether it's something else, to be able to rise above and have that success that you've had as an A-League head coach in such a short time?
I think for me the most important thing to answer your question is what I value most is family. And from day one it's always been about this team being a family, sticking together, and families through thick and thin stick together. And sometimes things happen that you can't control, and during those moments you've got to stick together, and that's important. I've always said from day one when I got this job that the change room's fantastic. That's always so important for me, that the change room has to be rock solid, has to get on with each other, has to be able to work together, and has to be able to be like a family. And that's the most important thing for me. That's what I value most. And, sometimes you've got to have difficult discussions, sometimes you have difficult moments. But in the end, if you're together, you can overcome anything and everything. And that's what we do. We turn up every day. We have fun because we get on well, and that's important. We work really hard, and we've got a common goal, and that goal is to be successful. And success comes in many ways, but for us it's about being together through this journey and getting us to where we want to go, and that's lifting something at the end of the year. That's what this club wants, that's what this club lives off, and until we do that, we haven't succeeded.
Arthur, from the coaching perspective, what can a win from today do in terms of building for the rest of the season? What's the plan now to try and keep that to be the baseline, that performance today now?
Consistency, like I said earlier. Last week was actually a fantastic performance in Adelaide. We didn't get the result, but the performance was excellent. And today the performance was even better. And that's why for me consistency is key. To play in big matches like that, it's easier to get motivated for the original rivalry or Big Blue. But we have to back up next week at Gosford. It's another game. It's a massive game for us, and we have to be just as good, if not better. And if we don't do that, then these 2 weeks mean very little. And that's why we have to be consistent and keep going. And that's the most important part for me. That's what this result does. Because sometimes you perform, you don't get a result. Today we performed and got a result, and we've got to keep going.
That performance was frightening. In the first half, there were 9 shots at goal, and your 4 goals came in the second half. And as mentioned, there were 3 disallowed goals as well. Does the sense of occasion come into it, you think? Is there talk around this game, coming into the week? I don't know, it's just, like I said, that it was a really dominant performance for 90 minutes.
We actually didn't discuss the derby all week. We discussed being better and making sure that we got to build momentum again. And momentum only comes from results. Momentum doesn't come from performance. Performance gives you confidence, but it doesn't give you momentum. What gives you momentum is by getting the points. And when you perform and marry that with a result, that's how you build momentum. And that was the most important thing. We love playing at home. You know, it goes without saying, the players aren't silly. They know it's a big blue. They know we're at home. They love playing here. We love playing here. We love our fans. Our fans are incredible. Sydney brought some good numbers, like I said earlier, which made it even better. And in the end, that's the most important thing, that you turn up, you perform, and you send all those people home really happy and looking forward to a good week ahead.
Just one point outside the 6 week World Cup, how sort of the snakes and ladders nature of the competition, 1 or 2 results can have a huge effect either way. Is that kind of one of the, I guess, motivating factors for the players? And if you, as you said, if you get your consistency up, keep on, rattling off good results, you can find yourself up near the top very quickly.
Yeah, and that's where consistency comes in. The teams that can be consistent are the teams that get up there and stay up there, and that's our motivation, to get up there. We're not where we want to be, that's for sure. It's a great performance, a top result, but you look at where we are and it's not where we want to be. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us still. It's pleasing, it's great. It's done now. We'll enjoy it for a few more hours, and then once tomorrow comes, today means nothing, and we look forward to Central Coast, and that's the most important thing, that we have that mentality to keep going and to keep striving to be the best version of ourselves that we can.
Talked about the big guns. What does it do for the squad when you're a guy like Lockie Jackson, who's been in and out of the squad, pinch hitting when you need him, score that header and take on, I think it was like Michael Thwaite with the arm swinging.
I think they should fine him for that celebration. He should have scored one in the first half as well. He had a free header, but yeah, no, well done to Lockie. Great header. Another one, he could have had a double. Like Santos, he missed a good chance. But in the end, the most important thing, that he defended well and helped the team keep the clean sheet. That's the most important thing. The fact that he can score for set piece. Set piece this week, the most amazing thing of the week was that Andrew Durrani, my assistant coach, told Davo during the week that he'd score this week off a set piece. He scored 2. Unfortunately, they weren't awarded. But Jura must have had some sixth sense about him. Davo kept looking at the bench every time he scored, but in the end, none of them counted. So I hope Jura's got that feeling next week too.
On that note, it seemed like every free kick you got in that area, every corner, you kept going back to that same spot at the back post. Was that a weakness in the Sydney setup that Jura identified, or a strength of yours that you wanted to exploit?
Yeah, a bit of both, I think. A bit of both. So, yeah, in the end, we executed quite well on the pitch in terms of our football in general play, and we haven't been rewarded enough, not by anything other than us not being good enough in set pieces to score more than we have. So today it was good to see that we got some outcomes which, that we work so hard and tirelessly with, and sometimes you don't get rewarded, and when you do, you enjoy that moment, because it's not easy to score off a set piece. You can see now teams put more and more emphasis on how to defend them and how to nullify the opposition. So when you do get one, you've actually had to work really hard for it.
I think it's 2 problems fitness question. 1, any concerns coming out of today? And 2, how close was Charles to getting up today?
Yeah, Charles played yesterday for the NPL team. Again, like I said earlier, for us, the health and well-being of a player is most important. He hadn't played since the end of November. So we knew the player that he is, but we knew we're not going to throw him in the deep end when you're not physically ready. Because in the end, you're coming mid-season, everyone's match fit, everyone's fit, the rhythm and the tempo of the game is really high. And we've got to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's to make sure we get him where we need to get him before we put him on the pitch. And I think after yesterday, he's now ready for selection come next week.
And concerns from today?
No concerns to my knowledge, no.